بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء وخاتم المرسلين سيدنا ونبينا بالقاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين واللعنة الدائمة الباقية على أعدائهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد, brothers and sisters in Iman, Assalamu alaikum. We apologize for the delay. We are now so much dependent on the new technology. It's not like the old days. This session that we have tonight will be the last one in this series because next Wednesday the entire building is going to be handed over to the audio-video experts who are going to set up the audio-video system for Muharram. So we don't have the access to the hall, neither basement nor here, or even gym. And so this will be the last session. Just to connect with the discussion that we had till now, we had 5 gatherings where we talked about the concept of Ijtihad. What is it? Why is it necessary for us to be able to practice the Sharia in the changing circumstances of human history? And we also looked at how Ijtihad is done. We actually went through some of the very simple examples just to get a sense of how the mujtahideen come to the conclusion. We also looked at the akhbari-usuli conflict. And last week, the 6th session, we talked about the concept of Taqleed, basically emphasizing the point that this is based on the aqli dalil. It's a very logical process that those who don't know have to refer to those who know. And based on that, when we talk about following the Sharia, either we do ijtihad ourselves or we follow somebody who is expert in the Sharia laws, and that is known as Taqleed. We also looked at this ayat from Surah Tawbah, which shows to us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually expects every Muslim community to have some people who would dedicate their life to go and study لَوْلَا نَفَرَ, so that لِيَتَفَقَّهُ فِي الدِّينِ. Why don't a group from every community go forth so that they may become learned in religion? And what will their role be, their responsibility after they have become learned in religion? That when they go back to the community, they warn them against the adhab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, basically guide them, how to be obedient servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Imams also have supported this concept of Ijtihad and Taqleed in theory as well as in practice. Especially if you remember the example we discussed last week of Muaz bin Muslim al-Nahwi, who actually used to sit down in Masjid Nabi and give fatwas. And people from different backgrounds would come, and he was capable of actually guiding them according to their own fiqh and madhab. And Imam actually, confirmed what he was doing and asked him to continue that. We have another example of a Sahabi by the name of Aban of the 6th Imam again, where Imam said that, I would like to see people like you, sitting in the masjid and basically giving fatwas and guiding the masses. Tonight, I would like to again, continue this concept of Taqleed, slightly talking about the details. But let me just go through very quickly what we looked at it earlier. That this process of Taqleed is basically, when we talk about Ijtihad, basically we are talking about a process where it becomes wajib kifai. And this also comes out from this ayat from Surah Tawbah, where Allah says, why not a group from each community. So it's not wajib on everyone, just like not everybody can become a doctor. But if there is no doctors at all in the community, it becomes wajib kifaya for at least a number of people to go and study that, so that they can serve the need of the community. Let us now go on to the issue of the qualities of Marjaiyyat Taqleed and the conditions. And before that, I would like to go back to this hadith of Imam Jaffar al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam, which was quoted by the 11th Imam, in which Imam talked about this concept of Taqleed among the Yahud and how it has been condemned. And then he said, if our people also, they do Taqleed of people who are, not religious, then they are also just like the Yahud following their rabbis. And then Imam ended with certain conditions. But if you find among your fuqaha somebody, who is muti'an li amri mawla, who is obedient to the command of the master, who is mukhalifan li hawa, who is against his own evil desires, and who is basically hafidhan li dini, somebody who protects his own religion. And when we look at all these conditions, we come to realize that it's not just, we cannot just follow anyone. There are certain qualifications which will make a person a Marjaiyyat Taqleed. But before we go on, let me ask you, what is the meaning of the word marja'? Anybody wants to take a guess on that? The literal meaning of the word marja'. Huh? No. Marja is from ruju. Marja means the point of reference. Marjaiyyat Taqleed means the point where we refer in Taqleed of our fiqh. So marja means a mujtahid who is being followed. Now you will say, is there a word in Hadith or Quran about the word marja? No. The word is not there, but these are different words used in different times in history. And so the word Marjaiyyat Taqleed means the mujtahid who becomes the point of reference in Taqleed, where people refer to him for religious matters. So what are the qualities which are required for a person before we can follow that marja? Number one, bulugh. Now, this is based on ijma'. And I'm just very briefly talking about the conditions and what is the basis of it. The second is aqil. This is very obvious. We don't need to be told that you follow only somebody who is aqil, not somebody who is majnoon. Number three, he must be mu'min. Mu'min means a Shia Isna Ashari. And number four, he must be adil. Adil means somebody who is upright in his character, doesn't commit major sins or sins publicly, at least in general. Number five, the condition that he should be male. We're talking about the marja', not the ability of ijtihad. If you have a lady who has the ability of ijtihad, then of course she is not a muqallada. She follows her own opinion. But the question is, can a mujtahida become marja' of taqleed? And that's where we see the condition is male. Now, this question, qualifications number 2, 3, 4, and 5. These are not based on textual proof, hadith or anything like that. This is based on something known as sirati mutasharri'ah. I think we briefly talked about it, that sometimes when we see the community from the days of the imams, and especially ghaybat al-sughra, early days, had been doing something, even if there is no lafzi daleel, no hadith about it, their action, their unanimity, their sirat or tradition, this itself becomes a basis of, it being a valid thing. And based on the continuous seerah of the Shia community from day one till now. These issues are there. Of course, baligh and aqil, we keep that inside. Mu'min. No Shia will follow somebody who is not a Shia Isnashari. We cannot really give our soul to somebody who doesn't really believe in our mazhab totally. The issue of being upright in character, the issue of being male. And when we look at for example, even in namaz jamaat, if it is a common namaz jamaat where men and women both are ma'mumin, then we have dalil which says that it is a male who has to lead the namaz. So if in namaz jama'at the condition of male is there, of course Marjaiyyat is even more important position in the community. Number 6, the issue of legitimate birth. Now this is, again, going back to this even concept of namaz jama'at. Illegitimate birth by itself is considered to be a naqs. Naqs means deficiency in that person. And that even in namaz jama'at, a person who is not of legitimate birth cannot lead. This is not a judgment against him. He would be the best of person on the qiyamah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to judge him in that way. But the question comes up, positions like Imam Jama'at or positions like Marjaiyyat. These are in a way sacred positions. And there are certain things which are required. The example I would give, but before even I come to the example, let me clarify one more thing here, because we get this question many times. So there is a difference between haqq and fard. Haqq means right. Farz means duty. If it is a matter of haqq, then you talk about everybody being equal. But when you talk about farz, which means a duty, they are two different things. For example, marjaiyyat of fatwa. Putting yourself in a position where you're giving fatwa for the people is not a haqq. People cannot say, even I demand to do that. This is farz. So this is not an issue of anybody being denied that right. Now when we look at that farz and the spiritual element of that position of Imam Jamaat or, for example, Marjaiyyat, there are certain things which are considered to be very sacrosanct and holy. And one of the issues is purity of birth of that individual. The example I wanted to give was the example of American presidency. In America, that is the highest position in the eyes of the Americans and in their constitution. It is a very sacred position in a way. And one of the conditions is that the president can only be somebody who is American by birth. Remember this whole issue about Obama, whether he was American by birth or not? As opposed to a person like Henry Kissinger. He is Amr ibn As of the time. Probably more shrewd than any of these candidates and people who have become president in the last couple of decades. More capable for that position. But he can never become the president of the United States of America because he's not American by birth. He's basically an immigrant. And so there are certain positions with even a nation, for example. Secular nation has reserved that there are certain conditions which must be met before a person can attain that position. In our fiqh, when it comes to the positions like namaz jama'at or marjaiyyat, purity of birth is one of the conditions for that. Number 7, the issue of being a living person. This we are talking about a person doing taqleed of someone. You cannot start the taqleed of a person who is dead. You can, baqab al-mayyit is one thing, which means you can continue the taqleed of the marja whom you followed, but now he's dead. But initially, you must follow the taqleed of a mujtahid, a marja who is alive at your time. And this is very important. And if you look at all the statements that we have, even when the ayat in Surah Tawbah says, from every community there should be people who go and become learned in religion, and they come back and warn their community. This ayat itself is expecting that there would be living mujtahid in every generation. If you look at the concepts of hakim or faqih in a hadith of the imams, they obviously refer to somebody who is alive at that time. And so this issue of, the initial taqleed should be of somebody who is a living person, is one of the essential things in the Shia madhab. Unlike the Sunni system where, taqleed can be done even of those who are dead. And that's why you have this concept of 4 madahib of fiqh among Sunnis, where you are either Hanafi or Maliki or Shafi or Hanbali. Basically, these 4 imams of the Sunnis are equal to the mujtahideen. They are not comparable to imams at all. If you really want to compare, you compare them with our mujtahideen. They are mujtahideen of the Sunni community, where they have stopped this process that you only do taqleed of one of these 4 mujtahideen of the centuries ago. Whereas in Shia tradition, we have this living, tradition of ijtihad. And this is something, we should really cherish, and we should continue that. And we should really value this. I'm surprised sometimes when we hear these statements from people who really, talk against this whole concept. They do not realize that we have something which is totally missing as far as the other communities are concerned. Number 8, one of the conditions, if you remember, we talked about ijtihad, that there were 2 categories of mujtahids. There is a mujtahid mutajazzi and mujtahid mutlaq. Mutajazzi is one who is still, doing ijtihad partially in some masail. Mutlaq is somebody who basically is now into all different areas of fiqh. When we talk about Marjaiyyat, whom do you follow? You should follow somebody who is now an all-rounded as far as, the areas of fiqh is concerned. And this is an issue which is based on ijma. Number 9, another important conditions is the issue of a'lamiyat. A'lam, the word alim means knowledgeable person, learned person. A'lam is a superlative form, the most learned. Like kabir means a, big person. Akbar means the bigger or the biggest. Similarly, you have alim and then you have a'lam. So a'lam refers to a mujtahid who is considered to be the most learned in that field of fiqh. This is something which has been accepted by the Shia ulama from early days. Early days of Ghaybat al-Sughra. You have people like Sayyid Murtaza, for example. He, talking about alamiyat, he says this is from musallamat of the Shia. Musallamat means those things which are unanimously accepted and agreed upon by the Shias. And so this is not something, sometimes we hear this concept that, a'lamiyat is a new innovation, it is a bid'ah, which started only 200 years ago. No. This has been there from day one, to the extent that you have, Sheikh Saduq during the days of the Ghaybat al-Sughra, then Mufid, and then Sayyid Murtaza. So we're talking about those early days in Ghaybat al-Kubra, where Sayyid Murtaza says that one of the musallamat of the Shia madhab is that the mujtahid that you follow should be a'lam. And this also actually a point I missed when we were talking about what came first. Was it akhbari or usuli? These kinds of issues are showing that the concept of ijtihad was there from day one. Even the books written by usuli ulama of the early days itself is a proof that usuli method or the ijtihadi method is part of the mainstream thought process of the Shia madhab. Now, these are basically the 10 common conditions accepted by majority of the mujtahideen. Now we come to one of the questions we get many times, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with that. But just to complete the discussion, let me talk about it. How do we identify an a'lam mujtahid? It is difficult. It's not something where we can just, easily pinpoint or measure them in that way. Alamiyat itself is a very complex issue. But we have been told there are 3 methods by which we can know who is a'lam among the mujtahideen and the maraja of the present time. One is your own knowledge. If you are learned in that field, in fiqh and usul, and you study, and through your study of their works, you come to the conclusion based on your own knowledge that for so and so is a'lam. The second, we're talking about the testimony of 2 expert witnesses who are just and adil in their own right, who say that yes, so and so is a'lam. But then there is a problem. If you have 2 people who are saying that mujtahid A is a'lam, and then 2 others who are equally expert and adil, and they say, no, he is not alam. It's a counter of that. Then we have a problem there. And according to Ayatul Sistani, then you had to then deal with the 2 groups. Who is more expert and learned among the 2 groups of witnesses that you have? Finally, the other method is the issue of shia or shuhrat and fame. Wherever you go, you hear one name, and when you hear it again and again everywhere, that itself creates kind of an itmi'nan in your heart that, okay, this is the person who is being acknowledged by at least the majority, if not all the community. And so these are the 3 ways by which the alamiyat of a mujtahid can be identified. The term which is used for those whom we would refer to, the experts, is ahlul khibra. Khibra means expertise. Ahlul khibra mean those who are expert in that field. Now, who are these people that we would refer to in order to find out who is a mujtahid or who is an alam? Well, ahl al-khibra, either they are mujtahid themselves, or they are close to them in the level of knowledge. They might not be mujtahid mutlaq, but they are familiar with the subject, and they are in a position to make the judgment that so and so is alam. The problem we have, we had a situation where there was a time when Ayatollah Burjardi, for example, was the sole Marjaiyyat Taqleed of the Shia world. After him, we had Ayatollah Hakim. Then we have Ayatollah Khoui, followed by a vast majority of the Shia world, although there were other Maraj also who were being followed. After that, we haven't really come to a similar situation, other than the 3 years of the Marjaiyyat of Ayatollah Gulpaygani. During his time, it was almost unanimous. Everybody followed him. But after that, it has become a difficult issue. We can't blame anyone. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to give a long life to Ayatollah Khoui, He gave the long life to him. During his time, he was able to train almost 3 generations of mujtahideen. And so because of his oversharing personality and fame and ijtihad, others who were, generation after him did not really come out until after he passed away. And so it takes time. And that is where we see that immediately after he passed away, there was we lost this previous situation where you have one person who is being followed by the entire community on a global level. Although we know who is followed by the majority now, but the differences are there because there is also difference among Ahl al-Khibra. Some group of people will say one thing, another group of people will say something else. And what is the duty of a layman there? This is again, these are all theoretical issues, but it's important to know about it. If the Ahl al-Khibra identify two individuals, and they say both of them are equally alam. In Urdu we have this saying, unnis bis ka farq hai. It's really difficult to say who is better than the other. So they're almost the same. In that situation, if they're able to identify two individuals and say both of them are equally alam, then as a layman, a Shia would have a choice to do Taqleed of any of the two. But if they are not able to say that both of them are equally alam, one group says Mujtahid A and the other group says Mujtahid B, then it becomes even more difficult. Then you have to find Ahl Khibra for the Ahl Khibra. You have to find out which of the two groups is more qualified to make that judgment. And so this is where it would go. And it becomes more complex because it is really difficult to make that difference between, as we say, on nis bis, between 19 and 20. Sometimes the difference is very difficult to identify in that way. But gradually, with the passage of time, I think things become clear, and some of them shine out against the others, as far as their ijtihad and their views are concerned. An issue, especially for the young people, they ask, and they do this these days, looking for the most lenient mujtahid. I've just been kind here to say lenient. Basically, they are looking for the liberal mujtahid. The one who will say everything is okay. And the problem is sometimes people put this in a more scholarly form. There's a discussion going on in some circles about tab'iz. Tab'iz means dividing the taqleed between 2 or 3 maraji'. Tab'iz from ba'az. And there is a concept, even Ayatollah Sistani allows that. But remember, that's even more difficult. What it means is that if for example, the Islamic laws is divided into different compartments. You have ibadat on one hand, namaz, roza, hajj, things like that. Then you have, for example, financial matters on the other hand. Then you have family life in the third area, issues with nikah, talaq, inheritance, and things like that. Then you have social, political issues, qazawat, judgment, and things like that. If a person is able to identify that, okay, so-and-so mujtahid is specializing in ibadat, his whole focus is in ibadat, and he is identified as an a'lam in that section, and then someone else, for example, is focusing only in what we call ahwal al-shakhsiyya, in family laws, about marriage, divorce, inheritance, and things like that. And that person is identified by Ahl al-Khibra, for example, as a'lam in this area. Then you are allowed to do taqleed in ibadat of one person, in family laws of another person. And then it could be even in financial matters, a third person. But this is not a matter of picking and choosing. That, okay, we have the fatwa of all range in all departments of fiqh, and I'll just go and see, okay, this mujtahid makes it easy in this area, I'll take this masala from him, another masala from, this another mujtahid. No. It is again going back to the issue of a'lamiyyat, whether this mujtahid is a'lam in that one field or not. We have not yet reached to that situation. And it is very possible because the way the human life is becoming more complex, issues are becoming more complex. A time will come where it will become difficult probably for one person to have absolute mastery on all issues of fiqh. So when we talk about future, yes, tab'eez is very possible, but not in the sense that I'll just pick and choose wherever I find it to be convenient. No, it goes back. This issue of tab'eez, compartmentalizing taqleed, is based on a'lamiyyat, that one is expert in one area of fiqh, the other is expert in another area of the fiqh. And that's where we have to see, not that we look at the Tawzul Masail and see, okay, he's making this issue easy for me, so I'll do his taqleed. That's not the way to go, because if you look at the statement of Amir al-Mu'minin Ali bin Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam, when he talked about one of his companions who had passed away in his lifetime, and he says he was a brother to me. If Ali says to somebody, he's my brother, this is a very great honor for that person. And what does he describe him? One of the qualities of that person, he says, whenever he was faced with two choices, gray area, he didn't know what is right, what is wrong, he would look at his own desire and go the opposite way. So the true Shia of Ali is somebody who goes against what is his desire. Not that, look for the fatwa which is according to our own hawa and hawas. That doesn't work. And, unfortunately, in the present time, the bazaar of this kind of fatwa is very, very hot. So we have to understand this issue of tab'eez is there, but tab'eez is not just picking and choosing any mas'ala the way a person likes. No, it is after becoming absolutely sure that this mujtahid is expert in this area of fiqh, I'll follow him in this way, and this other mujtahid is expert in this other area of fiqh, and this is where I will follow him on those other masail. As a way of, respecting and honoring the history of Ijtihad in our history, I thought maybe I'll conclude with a very brief narration of the prominent mujtahideen of all the centuries till our time. At least, we can appreciate that what we have now is not just something which has come easily. It has been handed over from one generation to other with further refinement, further, research, and this will give you an idea of even where the place of Marjaiyyat moved in the Shia world according to the political and social circumstances of the time. We'll start with the Ghaybat al-Sughra. Ali ibn Babawayh is one of the earliest fuqaha. He is father of Sheikh Saduq. It's interesting that the father was a mujtahid and the son was a muhaddis, more interested in ilm hadith. But the father was more a faqih and a mujtahid. Ibn Aqil al-Ummani, Ali ibn Babawayh lived in Qom. Ibn Aqil al-Ummani is from Yemen. This is the last name, Ummani from Amman. Muhammad al-Ayyashi from Samarkand. Do you know where is Samarkand? This is in one of the Central Asian republics, part of the Soviet Union in the past, just north of Iran and Afghanistan. And Muhammad al-Ayyashi is more known for his tafsir, but he came from a Sunni background. Then became a Shia and a very prominent alim. Sheikh Saduq actually went all the way from his area of Iran and Iraq to Samarkand to get the ijazah of hadith from al-Ayyashi, all the way to that area. And he actually inherited a big fortune from his father, and he used the money that he inherited from his father to basically, gather books and use it to teach to the people and even give scholarship to the students. His house had become like a hawza by itself. Then we have Ibn Junayd al-Iskafi from Iraq, again, southern part of Iraq. Then we come to the 5th century of Hijrah, Sheikh Mufid, stationed in Baghdad. Then Sayyid Murtaza, also in Baghdad. Then you have Sheikh Tusi, who was in Baghdad, but then he moved into, of course, he originally comes from Tus, from Khurasan area. He'd gone to Baghdad. He was there. He was a student of Sayyid Murtaza, and he became the leader of the Shias and stayed in Baghdad 10 years after the passing away of Sayyid Murtaza. But then there was a Shia Sunni riots in Baghdad where his house was burnt, his library was destroyed, and he became so, in a way, distressed that he left Baghdad, went to Najaf, and that's how the beginning of the Hawza Ilmiya of Najaf started with him. This is the point I would like us to remember, that many things which were written by our ulama have been lost. That library of Sheikh Tusi in Baghdad consisted of manuscripts only. Those days there was no printing press. And he is one of the compilers of the 4 books of hadith that we have. And so you can just imagine that there were so many things which have been lost. We have so many books from Sheikh Saduq, but his book known as Madinatul Ilm, which was multi-volume, he says, where he refers in many books, he says, go to this book for details. We don't have it. We don't even have even a summarized version of it. It doesn't exist anymore. Or in the 7th century, when the Mongolians invaded the Arab lands, Baghdad was destroyed, and many, many books of the Shia libraries also were totally destroyed at that time. Then we look at, again, Salar al-Daylami. He's again in Najaf. You have Ibn Barraj al-Halabi, Halab. This is in Syria. Tripoli. This is where he was there at the time. Abu Salah al-Halabi, again from Syria. These were the people, the mujtahideen of that time. Now, wherever I have drawn a line under the name, this indicates the impact of that alim, that it had an impact on the generations afterwards. For example, from Mufid, then you come to Tusi. Then Tusi's impact was so great that actually, till about 6th century, all the mujtahideen who came, they are known by the later ones as muqallida. They were all doing Taqleed of Tusi. They were mujtahid, yes, but they would not dare oppose the conclusions of Sheikh Tusi. It was only Muhaqqiq Hilli and then Allama Hilli who basically, broke the ice to dare to oppose the fatwa of Sheikh Tusi according to their own Ijtihad. Then we have Imaduddin Tusi in Najaf again, Ibn Zuhra al-Halabi, again in Najaf, Ibn Idris al-Hilli, who was in Hilla. This is where you see now the Marjaiyyat, and the center of learning is moving from Najaf to Hilla gradually. In the following century, then you have Muhaqqiq Hilli, the uncle of Allama Hilli, and then you have Allama Hilli himself, and now the concentration is all in Hilla. Fakhr al-Muhaqqiqeen, this is son of Allama Hilli, and then Shahid al-Awwal. He is known as Shahid al-Awwal. He is originally, he's from Jabal Amil. He was a Lebanese alim who came and studied in Hilla and then went back to Damashq. It was in Damashq that he was killed because of his, madhab. And he's known as Shaheed al-Awwal. Doesn't mean that, he is the first Shaheed. No, there are many, many Shuhada among the ulama, but he was a very prominent one, and the way he was killed was also very tragic. So gradually his name became famous as Shaheed Awwal. His name is Shamsuddin Muhammad bin Makki al-Amili from Jabal Amil in Lebanon. He had a strong impact till now. Mujtahideen, when they discuss the views, one of the views which are taken into consideration is the views of Shaheed Awwal. Then we have Faz al-Miqdad, again in Hilda. Then Ibn Fahd al-Hilli, again from Hilla, he went to Najaf. From Najaf, he ended up in Karbala. Then we come to the 10th century, where we see Ibn Hilal al-Jazairi. Again, the center moves back to Najaf. Muhaqqiq Karaki, who was in Najaf. And now in Iran, things change. The Safavid came to power, and they wanted to promote the Shia mazhab, but there were no many Iranian ulama, and so they asked help from Najaf. And at that time, the support came from Lebanon and Najaf, where Muhaqqiq Karaki came from Najaf to Isfahan, settled down there, and the father of Sheikh Bahai came from Jabal Amil. And so basically, this is very interesting for us to keep in mind in modern history. When you talk about the support of Iran for Lebanon, it's nothing only to do with the issue of politics. It's actually, paying back the gratitude, because Shiaism was spread in Lebanon, in Iran, with the hard work of the ulama from Lebanon and from Iraq. Muhaqqiq Karaki, basically, when he came to Isfahan, the king, especially Sultan Khuda Banda, basically said, "You are naib of the Imam, you should become the ruler." Where Muhaqqiq Karaki said, "Well, I'm giving you the ijazah to rule." So I accept your conclusion that I have a right to rule, but I'm giving you the permission to rule, with the condition that the judiciary matters and awqaf and things like that will be completely under my supervision. And so this is very interesting, interaction between the political and the religious authority in Shia Islam. What you see now in Iran is nothing new. This is actually has some, precedents in a different format. And it's interesting, even people like, I didn't think about it, maybe some other time, if you just look at the Farman written by Shah Tahmasp about Muhaqqiq Karaki, it's worth reading the style he uses to address him and describe the Mujtahid. Then we have Shaheed Thani, another scholar from Lebanon, from Jabal Amil. He came to Damashq, then went to Karak, then Egypt, then Jerusalem, ended up in Istanbul, where he was executed because of his mazhab. Now, if you look at his journey, which was in pursuit of knowledge, he basically had gone to all different areas of the Muslim world at that time, especially the academic centers. And he is the one who wrote a commentary on the book of Shaheed Awwal. Even now, one of the major comprehensive book of Shia laws is known as Sharh al-Lum'a. Al-Lum'a al-Damashqiyya was written by Shaheed Awwal. The commentary of that was written by Shaheed Thani. So it is a very interesting link between the two scholars who ended up becoming Shaheed because of their deen and madhab. Then you have Muqaddas Ardabili, again in Najaf. Then we are coming to the 11th century, Sheikh Bahai. His father had come from Lebanon to Isfahan. Then he was in Iran, went to different places, including Egypt, spent some time there as Shafi'i because he couldn't openly practice the Shia madhab there. So he pretended to be a Shafi'i there in Taqiyya, and there are many interesting, conversations that he had with the Sunni ulama there. Muhaqqiq Sabzwari, Isfahan, Muhaqqiq Khansari in Isfahan. Then we come closer to our time. This is the time where, Safavid power is there now in Isfahan. Jamal Khansari and then Fazil Hindi, again from Isfahan, but then who had gone on a journey to India also came back, became famous as Fazil Hindi, although he was not originally a Hindi. Then we had Sheikh Wahid Bahabahani. You remember his name when we talked about Akhbari and Usuli conflict? He was in Isfahan, but then went to Karbala to deal with this problem of Akhbarism. The reason why he moved to Karbala was that. And he was able to establish his prestige and his knowledge over there. Then we come to students of Wahid Bahabahani, Bahr al-Ulum in Karbala, and then moving back to Najaf, Kashif al-Ghita in Najaf, Sheikh Muhammad Hassan al-Jawahiri. He's known as Jawahiri because of his encyclopedia in Shia fiqh known as Jawahir al-Kalam. Sheikh Murtaza Ansari, a very prominent Usuli, and even now, if we believe that the present Usul al-Fiqh is founded on the expanded views of Sheikh Murtaza al-Ansari. This brings us closer to our time. Mirza Shirazi al-Awwal in Najaf and Samarra, Akhund Khurasani in Najaf, Mirza Nain in Najaf. These are basically, now we come to the teachers of Ayatollah Khoui, Ziauddin Iraqi, Muhammad Hussain Kompani, Abu al-Hassan Isfahani, Hussein Burujardi in Najaf and then Qom, Muhsin al-Hakim, Sayyid al-Khoui, Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, Ruhullah Khomeini in Qom, Muhammad Razak al-Paygani, and then we have the present generation that we have, Jawad Tabrizi, Fazil Lankarani, Sheikh Wahid Khurasani, Sheikh Makarim Shirazi, Sayyid Ali Sistani, Sayyid Muhammad Sa'id al-Hakim, Sheikh Bashir al-Najafi, and Sheikh Ishaq al-Fayyaz. And so you see still, even in Qom, the Maraja are still those who are influenced by the school of Sayyid al-Khoui, majority of them. And so this is where we see, this is a living tradition that we have, and we should really cherish this, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given this, blessing to our community, that in every generation we have the mujtahideen who have carried on this torch of the fiqh of Ahlul Bayt, alayhim salatu wassalam. Interestingly, the last four in Najaf, they're all from different ethnic backgrounds. Sistani is Irani, Al-Hakim is Iraqi, Al-Najafi is Pakistani, and Al-Fayyaz is Afghani. And these are the four Maraja of Qom. They're all from different, ethnic background. We'll conclude that, and inshallah, there are a few more things on this issue, but we'll leave it after Arba'in when we have the gatherings after that, inshallah, if Allah gives us the tawfiq. 5 minutes, if you have any questions. No, this is Shahid Sani. The one who is buried in India is Shahid Salis. That's Nurullah Shushtari. He was not a mujtahid as such. He was more, theologian. Of course, he was a very prominent alim, but didn't work that much in fiqh, more in defending the aqidah. Well, he was very capable, when he was appointed as a qazi in Agra by the king. He used to actually do the judgments according to Sunni fiqh because he was in taqiyya. Only some of the Sunni ulama found out that he is a Shia, but they didn't have a proof. So then they sent some of the people to become his students, gain his confidence, and they were able to get a copy of the manuscript he was working on Imamat. And they showed that to this king at the time. क्या नाम था उसका? हाँ? जहांगीर या पता नहीं. He was drunk at that time, and they made him sign this execution order for Sidney Murla Shushtari. And they killed him by cutting off his tongue. But his work is still very prominent when it comes to a very famous book known as Ihqaq al-Haq on the issue of Ilm Kalam and Imamat and Khilafat. Ahl al-Khibra, who chooses them? There is no official body which selects them. I wish things were more structured, but our community was always, or most of the time, we were as a minority. So we didn't really have a structure. It's not like a college of physicians making decisions about who is the most expert or something like that. But that's the role of Ahl Khibra. Normally, those who are prominent, for example, if you go to Najaf or Qom, you have the Maraji, but then you have second level of the teachers there who are not a Marja themselves, although they are giving Dars Kharij. Those are the people who are known as Ahl Khibra, because they are on that level. They are giving Dars Kharij themselves, and they have not yet claimed Marjaiyyat for themselves. And so there is no body as such. Yes, in Iran you have something known as Majlis-e-Khobragan, but that's for a different purpose. That is actually to select the leader of the country. So it's nothing to do with the issue of Marjaiyyat. Yes. The question is that if the Ahl Khibra say that none of the living Maraji are equal in Alamiyat to the one who passed away, then whether it's wajib or not, it all depends on whom you are doing, whom you have referred to now, whether they allow or not. People like Sayyid al-Khu'i, Sayyid Sistani say that if you consider the previous marja to be a'lam to me, then for you it's wajib to continue the taqleed of the previous marja. So he's going by the issue of a'lamiyat. Not everybody agrees with that view. There are many maraja who allow their muqallid to continue with the fatwa of the deceased, but it's not wajib. If they want, they can shift to the one who is living. And so it depends on the taqleed, because even to go back, you need to do the taqleed of somebody who is alive. Not only that he is allowed, he doesn't mention the name, but he says that if you consider the past marja to be a'lam compared to me, then it's wajib for you to continue. So he's making it wajib to continue. But the point is that that might have been absolutely valid at that time when Ayatollah Khu'i passed away. But whether it's same the situation after 15 years, for example, that's the issue we think about. Any other question? Nothing from the ladies? Huh? How do we know that Sistani has changed or Improved? Well, it's the same method that we use for identifying the alam has to be used. So you have to refer to two individuals who are expert in that field. And if they're adil and expert and they say that he is an alam, then you can go with that. Yes. If we are allowed to follow the deceased marja, is it like the Sunni method? Yes and no. There's a difference because even the issue of going back to the deceased marja who died in your own lifetime. We are not talking about going back to 4 generations. No. Like for example, I did Taqleed of one marja and then he dies. Now I follow somebody else and he says you're allowed to continue with his. So it is the issue of what we call baqa al-mayyit, means you can continue with the taqleed of the marja who has died. But you can't start. Let's say somebody is becoming baligh now. He says, can I start taqleed of Ayatollah Khoy? No. And so that's different from the Sunni method where you have to go back to either Imam Malik or Abu Hanifa or Shafi and Hanbali. Yes. If you become convinced based on those, method of identifying the alam, that you find out that somebody else is alam compared to the whom you're following now, then you have to change. No. To do taqleed, you don't even have to inform them anyway. Taqleed means just the commitment that, okay, I will base my actions on the opinion of so and so. It's not even that you have to, for taqleed to be there, you have to do the amal. No. Just that commitment is taqleed. Okay, let us, yes. Well, when we talked about the method used by usuli and akhbari ulama regarding Quran, we talked about it, not fully, but yeah, almost all issues were covered that the issue of studying the Quran, there is absolutely no problem in that. If people become retired and then they want to do the reading of the Quran carefully, that's a good thing. At least it's the best way of spending the retirement. But the whole issue is that they should be aware of the issue of tafsir bil ra'i. They cannot just look at the translation and then start, deriving conclusions. Even if ideas and thoughts come to their mind, then they have to refer to somebody who is more, the sources which are available now. Look at the tafasir. And that will be one way of, keeping themselves in the right track of studying the Quran in depth. So I don't think that interest is anything wrong. It's a good thing. The only thing is that they have to keep this in their mind all the time, that I shouldn't become, guilty of tafsir bil-ra'i. And for that, you always refer to the tafsir of those who are credible among the Shia community. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.